Before we get started, please like and subscribe. Let me know where you're watching from, and you can support the channel by clicking thanks or joining. The night the voice first called my name began like any other October evening in Pine Hollow, a rural township pressed against miles of dark woods that locals avoided after sunset. My name is Daniel Mercer, and for most of my life, I believed the superstitions about the forest were nothing more than old stories designed to keep children from wandering too far. I was wrong. That night corrected every assumption I ever held about what waits in the regions of the dark that human eyes cannot pierce. The wind carried a chill that hinted at early winter, the sort of cold that crept through layers of clothing and settled against bone. I had driven out to the cabins near Hollow Creek to check on the place my father left behind when he passed away 8 months earlier. I told myself it was part of my responsibility as the last member of the Mercer family. The truth was that I came because I felt drawn, as if someone or something wanted me there. The cabin was quiet when I arrived. Dust floated lazily in the beam of my flashlight as I unlocked the door. The interior smelled of old wood soaked with seasons of damp air. I wandered from room to room, checking windows, testing the stove, and making sure no raccoons had torn through the cupboards. Everything seemed fine, too fine. The woods outside were unnervingly silent, as though the entire forest held its breath. I stepped onto the back porch to smoke and clear my thoughts. A pale moon hung low, its glow diffused by thin clouds. The tree line, dense and towering, formed a jagged silhouette that cut across the sky. The forest had always been beautiful in its own way, but that night it looked like a mouth of crooked teeth waiting to devour whatever moved too close. Then I heard it. Daniel. My name drifted out from the woods in a voice that did not echo like a human call. It was soft, almost breathless, as though spoken inches from my ear. I froze. The cigarette slipped from my fingers and landed near my boot. I told myself it was the wind. It had to be the wind bending branches in a way that resembled language, but the voice came again, clearer this time. Daniel, come here. I backed up toward the cabin door. My heartbeat hammered against my ribs, each pulse sending a wave of cold through my bloodstream. That was no wind. Someone was out there, someone who knew my name. Someone who sounded identical to my father. The rational part of my mind fought to establish control. My father was gone. I stood at his hospital bedside when he exhaled his final breath. I signed the papers. I arranged the funeral. There was no possibility he was calling from the woods, yet the voice was unmistakable. Every cadence matched his. Daniel, help me. The last plea shattered any remaining self-control. I stepped off the porch, despite every instinct telling me to go inside and lock the door. My boots crunched on dead leaves as I approached the tree line. The air grew colder the closer I moved toward the forest, as though the night itself recoiled. Stop this, Daniel, stop, I whispered to myself, but my legs carried me forward. A compulsion tugged at me, subtle but powerful, like invisible fingers hooking into my spine. My father had died with his hand wrapped around mine. His voice had been weak but steady. He said he loved me, and that he was ready to go. He had never once asked for help. Hearing him beg now pierced me in a way that felt like being carved open. I stood at the first row of pines, their branches hanging low and heavy. Darkness pooled between trunks so thick that moonlight could not penetrate. Beyond that threshold lay the wilderness locals claimed was cursed. Since before the township existed, people went missing, hunters vanished, search parties found nothing but clothing torn as if by claws. "Daniel, come find me, I need you." The voice no longer resembled speech. It was stretched thin, elongated, distorted, as though forced through something that did not understand how humans talk. Unease turned to dread. Whatever called me did not carry my father's voice by accident. It used it the way a predator uses bait. I took one step back, then another. The compulsion faltered. The cold air seemed to surge forward, trying to grab me. The trees rustled, though the wind had stopped. For the first time, the forest felt alive in a way that had nothing to do with nature. Something inside those woods watched me, studied me, adapted to me. Leaves shifted, a shape moved between the trunks. Tall, too tall, a silhouette that swayed, as though its joints bent in ways human bones could not. My breath caught in my lungs. Through the shadows, a faint glimmer appeared where eyes should have been. They reflected moonlight exactly like a wild animal's gaze, but held a strange intelligence, an awareness sharpened by hunger. "Daniel," it whispered again, but now the voice held multiple tones layered together. My father's voice was only one thread in a woven chorus of stolen sounds. I stumbled backward until I reached the porch. My fingers fumbled for the door handle. When I slammed the door shut, the echo rolled through the cabin like a thunderclap. I bolted it and pressed my back against the wood, gasping as if I had outrun death itself. The voice called one last time, barely audible through the walls. "Daniel, you belong to the woods." Silence followed. No wind, no insects, no distant owls, only the endless quiet of a forest that had spoken my name and waited for me to answer. I did not sleep that night. I sat beside the window until the sky brightened with dawn, knowing with absolute certainty that whatever lived in that darkness was not done with me. And, for reasons I could not explain, a part of me feared that it was right, that I did belong to the woods, and that the voice was only beginning. Morning brought no comfort. Light seeped slowly through the curtains of the cabin as if hesitant to enter. I had not slept at all. Every sound during the long night felt amplified. The settling of old wood, the faint shifting of wind against the roof, the quiet groan of the forest, as if waking after speaking my name. My body was tense and sore, my nerves frayed like a rope pulled too tight. I felt a strange mixture of exhaustion and adrenaline, as though I had survived a hunt that had only just begun. I tried to tell myself that fear had blurred my senses. Perhaps the voice had been a memory playing tricks on me, Grief often twisted sound and emotion until the mind could not distinguish truth from longing. I made coffee on the old iron stove just to keep my hands busy, but the smell of burnt beans did nothing to calm me. My father's voice echoed again in my thoughts, not as a soft memory, but as a cold reminder spoken from the dark edge of the woods. "Daniel, you belong to the woods." I stepped outside with my coffee and scanned the tree line. The daylight exposed the forest in a gentler form. The branches no longer resembled reaching arms, and the shadows no longer looked like open mouths waiting to swallow me. Still, I felt watched. A prickling sensation crawled along the back of my neck, the same feeling I used to get when my father caught me sneaking out as a teenager. Only this time the watcher was not human, and whatever it wanted was not forgiveness. I tried to distract myself by clearing fallen leaves from the porch and checking the shed behind the cabin. Tools still sat on the shelf untouched since my father last used them. A rust-coated shovel leaned against the wall beside an old lantern that no longer worked. Dust coated everything. Nothing seemed disturbed, which should have eased my nerves. Instead, it made me uneasy. The cabin felt frozen, held in a perfect stillness, as if waiting for someone to return, but never aging while it waited. Inside, I sorted through some of my father's boxes, hoping to occupy my thoughts. I found journals wrapped in twine, each filled with neat handwriting. My father was a quiet man who rarely expressed emotion. Yet he had written page after page about the woods, the weather, the strange calls of wildlife, and the shifting patterns of the trees. At first, I believed it was a simple reflection of a man who lived close to nature. But the further I read, the more the tone changed. Something moves between the pines at night. It watches the cabin. It learns. Another entry read. The voice called again. Not mine. Not human. My stomach tightened. My father had never mentioned any of this. I flipped through more pages. His words grew unsteady, as though each entry was written with shaking hands. The woods want something. They always want something. The hairs on my arms rose. Closed the journal and took a deep breath. If he had heard the same voice I did, then this was not a momentary hallucination caused by exhaustion. This was something far older and more deliberate. I carried the journals to the table and set them down. The cabin creaked. It was a small sound, but in the quiet morning, it struck like the snap of a twig in a predator hunt. I turned toward the window. The curtains fluttered, though the air in the room was still. Then the floorboard beside the wall shuddered, as if something pushed against it from beneath. I stepped back. Another thud followed, faint but intentional, not the random settling of old wood, but a knock, slow, rhythmic, deliberate. I crouched low and pressed my ear to the floor. The wood felt cold and alive beneath my skin. After a moment, the knock sounded again. 3 taps, a pause, 3 more taps. I stood quickly and stumbled away from the spot. The knocking continued steady and patient, like something waiting for acknowledgement. My breath came fast. Whatever had spoken from the woods had not stayed in the woods. It had followed me here, or perhaps it had always been here beneath the floorboards, like a buried secret waiting for the right moment to unearth itself. I forced myself to step closer. The knocking stopped. Silence filled the cabin, thick and choking. I felt the same sensation from the night before, a pull deep in my spine, urging me to come nearer. My vision blurred with fear and curiosity. I knelt once more, pressing my palm against the cold wood. A whisper seeped through the floor like air escaping from a crack. It was faint but clear enough to understand. "Daniel, help me," my father called from beneath the cabin now. His voice trembled, as if weakened by pain, but the tone was wrong. Something within the sound stretched unnaturally, like it had been stitched together from memories. I staggered back, shaking my head. My father had never been beneath the cabin. There was no cellar, no crawl space, only earth and roots and whatever ancient thing lived within them. I forced myself to speak, even though my throat felt tight. "How are you here?" The whisper answered with a sound like leaves grinding against stone. "Daniel, come closer." The voice deepened, sliding into a chorus of overlapping tones. It no longer tried to mimic my father. It revealed itself as something older and hungry. The boards beneath my feet rattled, as if claws scratched the underside. I leapt backward, hitting the table. Journals scattered across the floor. Then the knocking turned violent. Rapid blows shook the entire structure. Dust fell from the beams. The lanterns rattled. Every strike felt like a warning or an invitation. I could not decide which. I grabbed my coat and backed toward the door. My instinct screamed run, but the voice pulled again, coaxing me to stay. "Daniel, do not leave." This time, the whisper came from the window behind me. I spun around, heart hammering. Outside, the tree line stood still, but between two thick pines, a tall shape leaned forward, its form almost blending into the bark. It had no clear outline, only a long mass that shifted like smoke, trapped inside a human silhouette. Two faint eyes glimmered within the shape, reflecting daylight, though not brightly. Their dim glow looked starved. The whisper shook the glass. "You belong to the woods." That final phrase broke me. I flung the door open and stumbled outside. Cold air hit my face. I did not care where I went. I only needed distance between me and that voice. I ran until my lungs burned, and the cabin disappeared behind thick trees. The woods stretched endlessly around me, every path unfamiliar. I stopped only when I realized I had no sense of direction. Panic swelled inside my chest. The forest had led me here, or worse, it had followed me, and now I stood alone in its heart, with the uncanny certainty that whatever hunted me was no longer behind me. It was everywhere. It was listening, and it was waiting for me to speak. I stood alone in the thick of the forest, surrounded by towering pines that blocked the morning light, and tangled roots that twisted like sleeping serpents beneath layers of damp leaves. The air felt heavier, here colder too. as if this part of the woods had never been warmed by sunlight. Each breath I took carried the sharp scent of pine resin and soil and something faintly metallic that stirred unease in the back of my throat. I tried to steady my pulse, but fear crawled through my nerves like an electric current. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds, no insects, no rustling branches stirred by small animals. The absence of noise made my own breath sound intrusive and unnatural. I tried to orient myself, but nothing looked familiar. The woods seemed to stretch in every direction in an endless maze of identical trees. A sense of disorientation gnawed at me. I had been to these woods before. I had walked them with my father during summers when I was young, but this place felt foreign, as if rearranged by unseen hands. I turned slowly, searching for any sign of the cabin. The panic rising inside me made it difficult to think clearly. My legs trembled slightly from the run, my lungs still burned, and my throat felt dry. Then through the dense trunks I noticed a narrow path carved into the ground. A thin line of disturbed leaves leading deeper into the woods. The path was too clean, too deliberate. It looked freshly made, not worn down by years of footsteps, but shaped recently as though something expected me to follow it. A cold pressure settled over my spine. Instinct screamed that this was wrong. Paths did not simply appear where none had been moments before. Yet the fear of remaining lost in the vast woods pressed harder. I had to choose: remain here with the silence closing in, or follow the trail that at least offered direction. My heart thudded loudly as I took my first step toward the trail. The trees seemed to shift subtly as I walked, as though the forest leaned closer, listening. My boots crunched against damp leaves. The deeper I went, the darker it became, until even midday light felt muted. The branches above formed a tangled ceiling that blocked much of the sky. The metallic scent grew stronger too, mixed with the earthy smell of moss and decaying bark. I walked for what felt like minutes, maybe longer, before the faintest whisper touched the air. "Daniel," I froze. The voice drifted through the trees from ahead, not behind. It was softer than before, and no longer tried to imitate my father. This version had a hollow quality, like air pushed through a hollow trunk. I swallowed hard. Fear tightened my chest, but some force deeper than thought urged me forward, as if the forest itself pulled me like a tide. I stepped cautiously around a bend in the trail. Roots sprawled across the ground like veins. As I moved deeper, a strange hum vibrated through the soil beneath my feet, faint but rhythmic, like a distant heartbeat pulsing through the earth. My steps grew slower, but I could not stop. The path curved sharply, then descended into a narrow ravine framed by jagged rocks. A thin mist gathered above the ground, swirling like pale smoke, even though no warmth should have caused vapor to form. The whisper returned, more insistent now. "Daniel, come here." The sound seemed to lead me toward a large fallen tree lying across the path. Moss and fungi clung to its bark in patterns that almost resembled symbols. A chill rolled through me as I approached. The hum beneath the dirt grew stronger. I crouched beside the fallen trunk and touched its surface lightly. It pulsed. A faint vibration throbbed beneath my fingers, as if something alive moved beneath the bark. I jerked my hand back. My breath escaped in a sharp gasp. Before I could step away, the ground beneath the tree shifted and the roots quivered like they were waking from a deep slumber. The mist thickened, curling around my legs. I stumbled backward, tripping over a rock. As I steadied myself, another sound pierced the silence. A low groan echoed from beneath the fallen trunk. It was not human, not animal. Something ancient stretched within the earth, forcing itself closer to the surface. "Daniel, help me." The voice cracked like splintering wood. It came from beneath the tree. For a moment, my mind locked onto the possibility that my father could somehow be there, trapped beneath roots and soil. But reason clawed its way back. My father had died months before. Something else was calling me. Something that used his voice the way a fisherman uses bait. I slowly rose to my feet, shaking my head. I spoke aloud, though my voice trembled. "You are not him." The forest held its breath. Then the whisper shifted its tone, softening into something that mimicked sorrow. "Daniel, please." The sound slithered around me, twisting through branches and creeping across the soil. I stepped away from the fallen tree, my instincts demanding distance. As I backed up, the fog ahead parted, revealing a clearing that had not been there seconds earlier. The path now opened directly into it, as if reshaping itself to guide me. The clearing was circular, almost unnaturally so. The trees around the perimeter leaned inward slightly, their branches bending toward the center, like witnesses gathering around a silent ritual. In the middle of the clearing lay a depression in the earth, shaped like a crude bowl lined with roots and stones. It pulsed with the same rhythm I had felt beneath the fallen tree. The moment I stepped into the clearing, the woods behind me shifted. The path I had followed slowly faded, the leaves rearranging themselves as if erasing my footprints. Panic clawed at my throat. I spun around, but the forest had closed itself. There was no way back. A deep sound rose from the ground like a slow exhale of something buried far below. The soil trembled beneath my boots. The air thickened with the metallic scent, now almost overpowering. A faint crack appeared in the depression at the center, widening slowly as if something pressed upward from beneath. I whispered, "No, no, no." But the crack widened further, splitting the earth like a wound. The whisper rose again, more clearly than ever. "Daniel, I am waiting." A shadow emerged within the crack, stretching its form upward like a column of darkness reaching for the surface. I stumbled backward, but roots curled upward from the soil behind me, blocking my retreat. The shadow swayed slowly as if studying me. The dim, faint glow of its eyes pierced the mist, their hunger unmistakable. I fell to my knees, the terror overwhelming. My pulse pounded violently. The shadow leaned closer, its form bending like liquid darkness, folding itself toward me. The whisper grew louder, rising to a chorus of many voices, all speaking my name. I realized then the woods were not alive in a metaphorical sense. They were alive in the literal and terrifying truth. The forest breathed, the forest called, and And now the forest had found me. The clearing pulsed one last time, and the shadow stepped free from the crack in the earth. The shadow rose fully from the cracked earth, unfolding like a column of darkness that refused to obey the shape of any living creature. It was tall, impossibly tall, stretching far above my height until its head nearly brushed the bent branches leaning toward the clearing. Its form did not hold the solidity of flesh. It rippled like smoke suspended in water, shifting with each faint breeze, but its movements were deliberate and focused. It knew exactly where I was kneeling. It knew exactly why it had called me here. The clearing dimmed, as though the creature absorbed the surrounding light. My skin prickled with cold, a deep chill that seeped into bone. I could not stand. My legs felt pinned by an invisible weight, or perhaps it was the roots curled behind me, tightening their grip whenever I tried to move. Every breath came shallow, thin, as if the air itself had thickened with the creature's presence. Then it spoke. Daniel. The voice did not echo from a mouth. It came from all around me, from the trees, from the soil, from the mist that swirled like pale smoke across the ground. It layered itself into a chorus of different tones. My father's voice threaded through the others, but so did voices I did not recognize. Men, women, even children. Each sounded hollow, like the echo of a memory long stripped of life. Fear clamped down on my chest. I whispered, despite the tremor in my throat. "What are you?" The shadow swayed, its form bending as if tilting its head, mimicking human curiosity. But there was nothing human about the presence before me. Its eyes, dim and starved, glimmered faintly within the shifting darkness. They were not eyes meant for seeing the way humans see. They were eyes meant for finding prey in an ocean of night. Something in the soil shifted. The crack from which the shadow emerged widened an inch, the roots pulling apart like the flesh of a wound. A faint tremor rolled through the clearing, followed by a low hum that vibrated in the air. "Daniel, come closer." The whisper slipped through me like ice water. I shook my head violently. "No." The shadow leaned forward, its form compressed, narrowing like a spear of darkness pointing at my chest. The clearing pulsed again, the same rhythmic beat I had felt through the ground earlier. The creature moved in sync with it, as if the heartbeat beneath the earth belonged to it. When it spoke again, the voice carried a chilling certainty. "You heard me before you arrived. You came because you belong to the woods." My breath caught. The voice was right. I had come to the cabin that day because something pulled at me, a feeling I could not explain. A tug behind the heart, subtle but persistent. Something had whispered long before I realized I was listening. The shadow drifted closer, not walking, not stepping, gliding. Leaves beneath it curled inward, as though recoiling. The mist gathered around its base like obedient followers. My mind scrambled for logic, for reason, for anything that could explain the creature in front of me. I forced out the question, "What do you want from me?" The clearing fell silent. Even the heartbeat beneath the ground paused. Then the shadow's eyes brightened slightly, glowing with faint hunger. To be known. The answer unsettled me in a way I could not articulate. known how. The shadow expanded upward, widening its form like a storm cloud preparing to break. The mist thickened, swirling around me until I could barely see the trees encircling the clearing. To have a name. Your name, cold washed through my blood. My name, my identity. It wanted not just to call me, but to claim me. The heartbeat beneath the earth resumed. Stronger, faster. The pulsing rhythm shook the ground like something large approached from below. The crack widened further, the soil trembling as if rejecting or releasing something ancient. I tried to crawl backward, but the roots behind me tightened, pinning me with unyielding strength. Panic erupted in my chest. Let me go, let me go. The shadow paused. It did not move for several seconds, but its attention sharpened, focusing entirely on me. Then in a voice eerily calm, it said, "You cannot leave until the woods release you." "And who decides that?" I shouted, fear pushing the words out. "The forest decides." A sudden wave of pressure struck the clearing. Branches groaned, leaves shuddered. The trees leaned closer, bending with such unnatural precision that it felt as though the entire forest inhaled at once. The shadow drifted closer, and within its darkness I saw faint shapes, swirling faces distorted beyond recognition, flickering like trapped memories. A realization hit with brutal clarity. These were the voices it used. These were the people it had taken. It leaned near enough that the cold radiating from it stung my skin. "You heard me, because you can hear what others cannot. You are born of the forest. You belong to us, born of the forest." The words burrowed into my mind. I thought of my father's journals, his warnings, his fear, his silence. Had he known something about me? Something he never had the chance to tell. I forced the shaking in my voice to still. "My father heard you too." The shadow shifted, slowly, purposefully. "He belonged, as you do." Something twisted in my stomach. Grief and anger mixed with terror. I glared at the creature even as tears blurred my eyes. "He fought you." The shadow's eyes dimmed. "He listened. You will answer." A violent tremor tore through the clearing. The crack in the earth split wider, sending a jagged line toward my feet. Heat surged upward for a moment, then faded into icy cold. The shadow expanded, its form becoming immense, towering, consuming the space around it. The chorus of voices rose again, calling my name, pleading, demanding, whispering. The forest felt alive, breathing through every tree, every root, every shifting branch. "Daniel, come home." The pressure on my legs released suddenly. The roots withdrew as if retreating from a command. My body jolted forward and I scrambled to my feet. For a brief second I could run. I could escape. The shadow reached toward me, its form stretching like an arm of liquid darkness. I bolted toward the edge of the clearing, heart slamming against my ribs. Every step felt like running through water. The mist thickened, branches lashed at me. The forest screamed my name. Then the shadow spoke with a final chilling certainty. "You cannot run from what you are." I broke through the mist and plunged into the trees, my breath torn from my lungs, my mind reeling with one horrifying realization. The creature did not merely want me, it believed it already owned me. Branches tore at my arms as I ran blindly through the forest, my breath burning in my chest. The trees whipped past in blurred shapes, their trunks twisting in unnatural angles that made it impossible to judge distance. I did not know where I was going. I only knew I needed to be anywhere but that clearing, away from the shadow that rose from the earth and the forest that breathed with its own dark hunger. Every footstep felt heavier than the last, as though the woods tried to reclaim each step the moment my boot left the ground. I pushed through a wall of low branches and nearly fell onto a narrow ridge. Below it, the land sloped sharply downward toward a shallow creek. My lungs ached with each inhale. My heart pounded violently, a rhythm that seemed to echo the pulse I had felt beneath the clearing. Even now, far from the cracked earth, I could feel faint tremors traveling through the soil. The woods were alive, and their presence followed. A whisper drifted between the trees behind me. "Daniel," my blood ran cold. The voice was distant but unmistakable. It threaded through the pines like a ripple of wind, but there was no wind. The forest watched me, waited for me, called for me. I stumbled down the ridge toward the creek, hoping the water might serve as some kind of barrier or boundary. The soil grew softer and colder as I descended until my boots splashed into the shallow flowing water. I paused to catch my breath. The water was icy, numbing my ankles instantly. I crouched and cupped my hands to drink, but a faint metallic scent rose from the surface. I hesitated. The reflection staring back at me in the water looked pale, hollowed, and exhausted, as though fear had drained my color entirely. Behind my reflection, faint shadows shifted along the opposite bank. My pulse spiked. I staggered backward, sending ripples across the creek. The shadows dissolved into the tree line, merging seamlessly with the forest. I backed away slowly, unsure whether they were watching or waiting. The whisper returned, this time from the opposite direction. "Daniel, come home." The words rippled through the water. My skin prickled with dread. I turned and followed the creek upstream, hoping to find a familiar landmark. My father had taken me fishing here many times when I was young. There had been a small wooden footbridge somewhere along the water. If I could find it, I could orient myself and make my way back to the cabin. But the woods had changed. The trees grew closer together. The branches overhead knotted into a tangled canopy that dimmed the daylight. The creek bent sharply in directions I did not remember. Each turn made the forest feel deeper and more foreign. It was as though the woods were shifting around me, guiding me somewhere of their choosing. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. Time stretched thin and strange, dissolving into the oppressive quiet. Then I turned a bend and froze. The footbridge was there, or what remained of it. The small wooden span my father built decades ago now lay half sunken into the water, rotted and partially consumed by twisting roots that grew over and through it. Thick moss coated every plank. It looked as though the forest had digested it, reclaiming what once belonged to men. I approached cautiously, the boards creaking under my weight. The water beneath the bridge darkened suddenly, shifting from clear ripples to an inky depth that reflected no light. I knelt, staring into it. A face stared back, not mine. A pale shape hovered beneath the surface, its eyes faintly glowing, its mouth opened slowly, too wide, too silent. Then a voice seeped from the water itself. "Daniel, help us." I jerked back so hard I nearly fell into the creek. The face dissolved instantly into ripples, but the voice lingered in the air. The whisper carried a blend of tones, dozens layered together, begging and pleading all at once. My throat tightened. I backed away from the bridge, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The faces in the shadow, the voices in the soil. Whoever they were trapped, absorbed, consumed by the woods. Something cracked behind me. I spun. A figure stood on the opposite bank. Tall, thin, wrong. Its limbs bent in gentle arcs like branches shaped by years of wind. Its head tilted slightly, swaying as though studying me. Its form flickered between solid and smoke, the edges dissolving into drifting mist. My breath hitched. I stepped backward 1 inch at a time as the creature leaned forward, its faint eyes glowing with that same starved hunger I had seen in the clearing. It spoke without moving. "You came back to us." I shook my head. My voice cracked. "I never belonged to you." The creature stepped forward, and the water parted around its legs without resistance. The creek obeyed it, folding away as though welcoming something ancient. I turned and ran. The forest erupted with sound for the first time since I entered it. Branches snapped, leaves rustled, roots tore through the soil. The woods were no longer still. They surged with a violent hunger. I sprinted along the creek until the land lifted again. The incline was steep. My legs burned. My breath tore at my throat, but I climbed anyway. The whispers chased me. "Daniel, Daniel, come back. Daniel, you belong." I broke through a thicket and stumbled into a familiar field, one that lay only a short distance behind my father's cabin. Relief washed over me in a trembling wave. I could see the roof through the trees, but something was wrong. The cabin looked older than before. The wood was darker, more weathered, as though decades had passed in the hour I had been gone. Moss clung to the corners. Vines crawled over the windowsills. The air around it felt still lifeless. I stepped forward slowly, my breath uneven. The forest behind me grew quiet again, but the silence felt sharper now, charged with expectation. The door of the cabin creaked open on its own. My heart dropped. Inside, the lights were off. The shadows were thick and unmoving, and something stood just beyond the doorway, its outline barely visible in the dark. It whispered my name with impossible certainty. "Daniel." My body went rigid. That voice did not come from the woods this time. It came from inside my home, and whatever waited there knew I had nowhere left to run. I stood frozen at the tree line, staring at the doorway of the cabin where the whisper of my name had slipped out like a breath from a sleeping beast. The wind did not move. The forest behind me held its silence like a closed fist. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to run, yet my legs refused to obey. It felt as though the woods themselves waited to see what choice I would make. "Daniel," the voice came again, gentle, coaxing, impossibly familiar. It sounded like my father. It sounded like he was standing just inside the cabin, waiting for me the same way he would wait when I came home late as a teenager. But the twisting dread in my stomach, clearly this was not him. The cabin door stayed open as if inviting me inside. My breath shook in my chest. I took one slow step forward, then another, the dried leaves beneath my boots crunching quietly. I hesitated at the porch. The boards looked older than I remembered, warped and darkened by time. The wood smelled damp and earthy, like it had been buried underground and only recently unearthed. I stepped onto the porch. The structure groaned beneath my weight, the sound carrying through the quiet air. Inside, the cabin was dark, the shadows so deep they felt layered one upon another. The air inside was colder than outside, carrying the faint scent of smoke and something else metallic, like old blood or rusted iron. My throat tightened. I forced myself to speak. "Who is in there?" Silence. Then footsteps, slow, measured, deliberate. They creaked across the cabin floorboards, one step at a time. My breath hitched. The shadows inside shifted, parting like curtains pushed by a gentle breeze. A faint outline stood just beyond the doorway, too tall to be human and too still to be alive. The figure did not move forward, but its voice slipped out with unnatural ease. "Come in, Daniel." I shook my head, my heart hammering. "This isn't my home." The figure tilted its head. The motion was delicate, almost graceful, but entirely wrong, as if bones bent in ways they were never meant to. The voice softened, layering itself with tones I recognized. "You left us in the woods, but we never left you." My skin crawled. I stepped backward, but the forest rustled behind me, branches shifting even though no wind blew. It felt like the woods were closing in, narrowing my choices. I could not go back into the forest, not with the shadow creature searching for me, and I could not remain outside. The air felt tight, constricting, as though pushing me toward the door. I swallowed hard and stepped inside. The moment my foot crossed the threshold, the air shifted around me. The door creaked, then slammed shut behind me with a force that sent dust falling from the rafters. I spun around and grabbed the knob. It would not budge. The metal felt ice cold beneath my hands, colder than winter. "Daniel," the voice drifted from deeper inside the cabin, not angry, not impatient, simply certain. I turned toward the sound. The room looked different. The furniture was older, warped, like decades had passed since anyone used them. My father's journals, which I had left on the table earlier, were gone. The lantern beside the window flickered faintly, though I was certain it had been unlit. The floor beneath my feet throbbed with a faint pulse, like a heartbeat echoing through the wood. I stepped deeper into the cabin. Shadows clung to the walls, stretching like long fingers reaching for the floor. The voice came again, closer now. "You ran from the woods. You can't run from yourself." My breath trembled. "Show yourself." A low creaking echoed from the back room. I approached cautiously, feeling the temperature drop with each step. When I reached the doorway, the room beyond was empty. Dust floated in the pale light. The old bed sagged in the middle. A cracked mirror hung crooked on the wall. I turned my head, scanning for movement. Then the mirror shifted, not the frame, the reflection. The room in the mirror warped slowly, like an image melting in heat. My reflection blurred, stretched, twisted into a longer shape. Its arms elongated, its posture bent in unnatural curves, its head tilted impossibly far to the side. My pulse spiked violently. I stepped back. The reflection whispered, "Daniel." I stumbled away from the mirror, but the reflection did not follow my movements. It continued to shift, growing taller, thinner. Its mouth opened slowly, impossibly wide, until the entire lower half of its face seemed to unhinge. "Help us," the voice slipped out, layered with hundreds of whispers. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. My knees trembled uncontrollably. The reflection leaned closer to the inside of the mirror, pressing its elongated fingers against the glass, leaving dark smears like soot or ash. "No more running, Daniel. Come home." The cabin floor rattled beneath my feet. The heartbeat pulse grew stronger, vibrating through the boards. I stepped backward toward the center of the cabin. The shadows along the walls shifted again, curling inward. One shadow detached itself from the corner, stretching upward from the floor like a living thread of darkness. My breath froze. It formed into a shape. Tall, familiar, wrong. The shadow creature from the clearing stood in front of me, its form rippling with liquid darkness, its faint glowing eyes locked onto mine. I felt the same pressure against my chest as before, a silent demand for obedience. "You cannot leave the woods, because the woods are in you." The cabin trembled. The walls groaned. Cracks spread along the ceiling beams. The creature drifted closer until its presence pressed against my skin like cold fog. My heartbeat stuttered. "Why me?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. "Because you hear us." The creature extended a long, shadowy limb toward my chest. I couldn't move. The darkness brushed against my shirt, passing through cloth and flesh like mist. A burning cold spread through me. My vision blurred. "You will return. And when you do, you will open the way." The pulse in the floor surged violently, shaking the entire cabin. The lantern by the window shattered. The mirror cracked in a spiderweb pattern, splintering the twisted reflection into dozens of distorted faces, all whispering my name. The shadow creature leaned close enough that its voice rumbled inside my skull. "Daniel." The cabin floor split beneath me. I fell into darkness. Cold air swallowed me as I plunged through the collapsing floor. The darkness was absolute at first, thick and suffocating like falling into a pit of wet soil. My body twisted in the drop, the sensation of weightlessness stretching into seconds that felt impossibly long. Then my shoulder struck something hard. Pain shot down my spine as I tumbled onto uneven ground and rolled to a stop in complete blackness. My lungs seized. Dust and earth filled my mouth. I coughed violently and forced myself onto my hands and knees. A faint echo lingered in my ears, the last thing I heard before I fell. Daniel, the voice, the shadow, the creature that claimed I belonged to the woods. Its presence clung to the darkness around me like a heavy fog. Even though I could no longer see it, I wiped dirt from my face and blinked until faint shapes began to emerge. The darkness was not empty. I found myself in a cavern beneath the cabin, though no such place should have existed. The ceiling arched low in some areas, rising into jagged points in others. Roots dangled from the beams like skeletal fingers, swaying gently despite the still air. The walls were made of tightly packed soil mixed with pale stones veined with dark patterns that pulsed like veins. It vibrated through the floor, steady and rhythmic, the same subterranean heartbeat I had felt from above. It seemed louder here, closer, as though the earth itself breathed beneath me. I stood slowly, every muscle aching. My flashlight was gone, lost in the fall, but faint illumination glimmered from the stones embedded in the walls. The light flickered like embers in a dying fire, casting long, wavering shadows. I steadied my breath and whispered into the cavern, "Hello." The sound echoed far too deeply for the small space. It returned distorted, stretched thin as though traveling through miles of twisting tunnels. A second echo followed. That was not my voice. "Daniel." My pulse spiked. I spun around, searching the darkness for movement. Roots shifted overhead with soft cracking sounds. The ground beneath me trembled briefly, then stilled. I needed to move. Standing still felt like offering myself to whatever hunted me. As I walked deeper into the cavern, the heartbeat grew louder. The walls narrowed into a long passage that descended at a slow angle. The air grew colder with each step. Moisture collected on the walls, dripping in slow, rhythmic droplets that mimicked the cavern's pulse. The whisper returned. "Daniel, help us." Multiple voices this time, layers of them, some familiar, some foreign, all hollow. The sound seeped through the soil as though buried mouths pressed against the walls. I moved faster, my breaths becoming short and ragged. Panic clawed at my throat. Something shifted behind me. I turned sharply. A shadow rippled across the cavern wall. Not mine. It crawled along the ground, long and thin, dragging itself forward before retreating suddenly like a creature learning how to move. I stumbled backward, tripping over a swelling root. My back hit the wall. The stones pulsed beneath my spine. A crack formed in the soil a few feet ahead. Slowly it widened, splitting with deliberate precision. Cold air poured from it, carrying the smell of deep earth and something else. Decay. A hand rose from the opening. I froze. It was pale. Too pale, nearly colorless, as though drained of blood long ago. Its fingers were elongated, the joints swollen and bent at unnatural angles. The hand clawed upward, emerging further until an arm followed, then a shoulder, then a head. I choked on my breath. The figure that pulled itself from the earth had no face. Its skin was smooth where features should have been, except for faint impressions, indentations where eyes might once have been. Its mouthless head tilted toward me. It shivered violently, as though unused to air or light. Then it whispered, "Help!" The sound came from everywhere except the figure itself. I backed away, my hands trembling. Another crack opened behind the faceless figure, then another. Soil split across the cavern floor as more hands reached upward. 1, 3, 5, dozens. They climbed out slowly, awkwardly, like newborns stepping into a world their bodies did not recognize. Their limbs bent in disjointed angles, their torsos twisted too far, their heads jerked to follow sounds that did not exist. And though none had mouths, their whispered pleas filled the cavern, like breath squeezed through the earth. Daniel, help us. Daniel, come back. Daniel, don't leave. My mind reeled. These were the voices the shadow creature used. These were the ones trapped beneath the forest. The ones who had answered the call before me. The faceless figures stumbled toward me on shaking limbs. I stepped back, but the wall pressed against me, cold and alive. The heartbeat in the cavern thundered now, vibrating my bones. A tall shadow appeared at the far end of the corridor. The creature, its silhouette rippled like smoke caught in slow motion. Its dim eyes glowed faintly through the darkness. The faceless figures turned toward it, their bodies trembling violently, as though recognizing something that commanded fear and obedience. The creature spoke, not with a whisper this time, with a sound like roots tearing through soil. He will open the way. The faceless creatures shuddered. Some dropped to their knees. Others reached towards me with claw-like hands, their touch grazing the air inches from my skin. I pressed myself harder against the wall, my breath ragged. I had no strength to fight, no way out, no escape. The creature glided closer. It towered above the faceless forms, its presence blotting out the cavern's faint glow. Its voice descended into a low, rhythmic rumble that shook dirt from the walls. You hear what is buried, you feel what is waking, and you will bring it forth. I shook my head violently. No, I won't do anything for you. The creature leaned closer, its form bending until its eyes hovered inches from mine. Cold radiated from it, seeping into my marrow. The heartbeat beneath the earth aligned with my own, syncing rhythm for rhythm. You already have. The faceless figures surged toward me all at once. Their hands brushed my skin, freezing cold, whispering their hollow pleas directly into my ears. Help us. Open the way. Free us. The cavern floor split wide beneath my feet. The earth yawned open like a vast maw. A roar of wind surged upward from the depths, carrying the metallic scent of ancient soil. I felt myself sliding. The shadow creature reached out not to stop me, but to guide me. Below the cracking earth, something vast moved in the dark, waiting, awake, and as I fell into the abyss beneath the cabin, the last thing I heard was the forest whispering in a single united voice. Daniel. The fall felt endless, a plummet through choking darkness, where the air grew colder and heavier with each second. My body twisted helplessly, buffeted by unseen currents of wind that should not have existed underground. The roar from below intensified until it felt like the entire earth was exhaling. Then, without warning, the descent slowed. My body drifted as though suspended in liquid air, gently rotating until my feet touched solid ground. I collapsed to my knees, Gasping, the darkness around me pulsed with a faint red glow. I blinked until the cavern sharpened into view. The space was impossibly large, stretching farther than any natural chamber could reach, its ceiling lost in shadows. Towering pillars of stone jutted upward, like the ribs of some ancient creature buried beneath the earth. The heartbeat was louder here. It throbbed through the chamber floor, vibrating up my legs and into my chest until my own pulse fought to align with it. The sound reverberated in the walls like a living drum. Every beat felt deliberate, purposeful, awakening something older than human memory. I forced myself to stand, legs trembling. A vast chasm stretched before me, its edges jagged and glowing faintly red. Deep below, something moved slow, monumental, like the shifting of stone slabs grinding against one another. I whispered into the cavern, my voice fragile. "Where am I?" The answer came from every direction. Below home, the voice spoke not as a whisper, but as a resonance that lived inside the heartbeat itself. It vibrated through me until my bones ached. I stepped backward instinctively. The red glow brightened along the far wall of the chamber, outlining something massive. At first, I thought it was a rock formation, but as the light shifted, the shape revealed itself. A humanoid figure lay embedded in the stone. It was enormous, easily 30 feet tall, with limbs partially fused to the cavern wall as though grown into it. Its skin looked like petrified wood, cracked and veined with faint lines of dull red light. Its head was bowed forward, buried in darkness, but the outline of a face, distorted and elongated, pressed faintly against the stone shell. The heartbeat came from it. Every throb pulsed through its body, lighting the veins that wrapped its limbs. The cavern floor trembled with each contraction. I staggered back, horror freezing my breath. "What is this?" the voice answered. "What waits? What remembers? What you will free?" My pulse raced. I shook my head. I never agreed to anything. The chamber air thickened. Roots dangled from above, writhing like tentacles seeking purchase on the ground. They twisted toward me, curling as if sensing heat. Footsteps echoed behind me. Not heavy, not human, slow, gliding, like shadow dragged across the ground. I turned sharply. The creature from the woods approached, its tall form rippling in the red glow. Its eyes burned brighter here, reflecting the heartbeat's rhythm. Behind it, more shapes emerged. Faceless figures that had risen from the cracks. They huddled at the chamber edge, their bodies trembling violently in the light. The creature extended its arm, a limb of shifting darkness. The Ancient One wakes, and you will open its way. Open what? What way? The creature glided closer. The chamber hummed louder, as though responding to its presence. The way between worlds. The path that was closed. The forest remembers. And so do you. I backed away until my heel hit the cavern edge. Below, the movement in the abyss grew louder. I could not see what stirred, but the sound alone filled me with primal terror. The creature tilted its head, studying me like a curious predator. "You hear us because you are born of what sleeps here. Your blood remembers." My stomach twisted. My father's journals flashed through my mind. his warnings, his fear, his whispered confessions about the woods. He had known something about me, something he died before telling me. I forced the question out of my tightening throat. What am I? The creature did not hesitate. A key. The faceless figures shuddered at the word. Several fell to their knees. Their bodies vibrated with the heartbeat, as though something called to them through the ancient pulse. The shadow extended its limb again. Come, Daniel, complete the remembering. Open the way. I shook my head violently. No, I won't. The creature stepped forward. At its approach, the fissure in the cavern floor widened. A blast of hot wind rushed upward, carrying soil, ash, and distant whispers. The faceless figures crawled closer, their hands scraping the stone. Their whispers overlapped, a pleading chorus. Free us, help us, let us go home. The ancient figure embedded in the wall pulsed again. Cracks spread across its stone shell, sharp and glowing. A deep groan echoed through the chamber as its massive arm shifted slightly, stone grinding against bone. The creature's voice sharpened. You cannot refuse. The awakening has begun. Your fall was acceptance. Your presence is permission. The stone beneath my feet trembled violently. The chasm widened even more. A massive shape moved in the red-lit depths, rising slowly. I stumbled back, but there was nowhere left to go. The creature surged forward, shadow stretching toward me. The Ancient One will rise, and you will open its first breath. The cavern floor cracked beneath me. I fell again, this time not into empty darkness, but toward a vast, rising shape. As I plummeted, I saw it clearly for the first time. A colossal eye opened beneath the earth. It was the size of a lake, lined with fissures of glowing red light. It blinked once, slow and terrible, focusing on me as I fell toward it. The heartbeat thundered, the chamber roared, and the ancient thing beneath the world awakened fully. The colossal eye beneath me widened as I plunged toward it, its glowing red fissures spreading like cracks across a burning horizon. Heat surged upward in a violent wave, scorching my skin as the air roared around me. The beat of the earth, once a distant thrum, now thundered like a war drum inside my skull. For a moment I thought I would collide with that terrible eye, be consumed by its awakening gaze. But a sudden current of wind twisted upward, catching my fall. I hovered inches above the vast eye, suspended by an unseen force. My limbs hung weightless, my breath stuttered. The eye blinked, the wind vanished. I dropped, my hands slapped against something solid. I gasped, scrambling backward. I was no longer falling. Instead, I sat on a platform of smooth, dark stone hovering above the monstrous face. The stone pulsed faintly like the flesh of some living creature. I crawled to its edge and stared down. The ancient being was rising. Its enormous form, half stone and half something older, stretched upward from the abyss. Chunks of earth broke away from its body. Cracks spread across its limbs as if shedding centuries of imprisonment. The chamber quaked violently. Dust rained from above. Roots snapped, rocks split. A deafening groan erupted from the depths as the Ancient One exhaled its first breath in ages. My ears rang, my vision blurred. I clung to the platform as though it were the last stable thing in existence. A voice thundered across the chamber. "Daniel, this time." It came not from the shadow creature, nor the faceless beings. It came from the Ancient One itself. The voice reverberated through bone and marrow, vibrating the back of my teeth. It spoke with the weight of ages. "Daniel, you are the key." My voice cracked. "I am nothing to you." The chamber shook with a low rumble that felt disturbingly like laughter. "You hear the forest. You hear the buried Onya. You will hear me." The Ancient One lifted its massive head, stone plates grinding against one another as it shifted. A second eye opened beside the first. Its gaze bore into me like molten iron. Behind me, the shadow creature rose from the stone floor, its form taller and darker than before, as though the awakening empowered it. The faceless figures gathered at the edge of the platform, trembling violently, their hands outstretched in reverence or fear. The shadow creature spoke. "The worlds have drifted apart for too long. You will open the way." I shook my head, voice raw. "I do not know how." The Ancient One inhaled again. "Yes, you do." Images flooded my mind with the force of a tidal wave. Memories not mine. Visions of ancient forests rising across continents. Vast beings walking the earth before the dawn of mankind. Gates between worlds carved deep within the roots of creation. Humans born near those gates hearing the voices of the buried. My father, he had known, he had heard, and he had hidden me from it until the woods found me again. The ancient voice boomed. "Your blood carries memory. Your steps carry permission. You opened the path when you entered the forest. You opened the door when you answered the call. Now open the way." The platform cracked beneath me. A narrow beam of red light shot upward from the abyss, striking my chest with searing heat. I screamed as pain ripped through every nerve. My vision went white. My hands clawed at the platform. The faceless figures began chanting, "Open the way, open the way, open the way." Their voices were hollow yet rhythmic, as though following a ritual older than language. The shadow creature moved closer, its form flickering with anticipation. I tried to stand, but my legs shook unbearably. The red beam burned into me, ripping deeper, searching for something. My heartbeat raced in frantic sync with the ancient rhythm. I pushed against the pain. "Stop, I can't do this. Stop." But the Ancient One spoke with absolute certainty. "You already have." The chamber roared as a new crack tore across the cavern ceiling. Roots writhed downward like serpents. The stone ribs of the chamber shifted aside, widening the space. Hot wind surged outward, blasting across my face, and then I felt it, something inside me opening, a hollow space I never knew existed, unfolding like a door. A second pulse ignited beneath my ribs, an echo of the ancient heartbeat. It vibrated through me, aligning with the rhythm of the chamber. The faceless beings dropped to the ground. Trembling, the shadow creature bowed its head. The Ancient One lifted its massive hands toward the platform. Light burst from my chest, a beam pure and blinding, shooting upward into the chamber ceiling. The stone cracked, the roots split apart. A column of roaring wind spiraled through the newly opened gap, connecting the buried world with the forest above. I screamed, feeling the power tear through me like a blade made of fire. The Ancient One exhaled. The way is opening. I collapsed onto the platform, shaking uncontrollably. The beam of light dimmed, but did not vanish. It now pulsed in a steady rhythm, vibrating the air around it. The Ancient One slowly lifted its head higher, freed further from the abyss. Above us, through the widening tear in the cavern ceiling, I saw a sight that froze my blood. The forest was changing. Trees bent inward, their branches twisting into spirals. The sky above them darkened, swirling with clouds that formed impossible shapes. The ground split in long, jagged lines. Shadows poured upward from the soil like smoke. The voice of the Ancient One thundered again. The worlds will join, the forest will rise, and you, Daniel, will lead the way. I forced myself to my feet, pain lancing through every muscle. The platform cracked again. The Ancient One reached toward me, its massive stone fingers opening like the petals of a monstrous flower. Come, key of the forest. Come awaken what was lost. I stepped backward, shaking violently. No, I won't, I will not help you. The chamber fell silent. The Ancient One stared at me with eyes older than time. Then it spoke with quiet certainty. You cannot close what is open. The light pulsed again behind me. The tear in the ceiling widened, and far above, something vast moved in the sky, something waiting for the Ancient One to rise, something that had heard my call and was now answering it. The sky above the cracked ceiling churned like a living storm. Shadows twisted through the clouds, bending into shapes that defied the laws of nature. The tier between worlds widened with every pulse of light streaming upward from my chest. My breath came in ragged bursts. Pain radiated through my body as though my bones themselves were reshaping with each surge of ancient energy. I staggered backward on the trembling stone platform, struggling to remain upright as the entire underground chamber convulsed with violent tremors. The Ancient One was rising, the massive titan half stone, half flesh, and entirely alien, dragged itself upward from the abyss. Its colossal arms tore through rock as though ripping open a tomb. Each new movement sent shockwaves through the cavern, causing stone ribs to buckle and roots to snap like brittle threads. Dust and shards of rock rained down around me. The faceless figures trembled on the cavern floor, their bodies contorting as though the awakening pulled at their very essence. Above us, the forest responded. Through the widening tear in the ceiling, trees writhed like serpents, bending inward toward the opening as if bowing to the Ancient One. The sky darkened into a swirling vortex, and lightning flickered within it, silent, unnatural, illuminating the twisting forms of the clouds. The shadow creature glided to my side, towering over me, its presence colder and denser than before. Its form pulsed with red light in sync with the Titan's heartbeat. Its voice drifted out in a whisper that carried the weight of command. The way is open. You have done what was required. I shook my head, trembling, adrenaline burning through me. I did not do this on purpose. I never wanted this. The shadow creature tilted its head in a slow, deliberate motion. Intention is irrelevant. Blood remembers even when the mind does not. You are the key, because the forest chose you before birth. My heart pounded violently. Chosen for what? The titan roared. The sound was a deep, resonant bellow that sent cracks spider webbing across the chamber walls. The faceless figures collapsed, writhing, their bodies spasming as though the roar pierced their souls. The shadow creature did not bow. It simply watched, waiting. The ancient one lifted its head fully into the red glow of the chamber. The stone shell that covered its face shattered. Beneath it, a surface of cracked flesh pulsed with dim light. Where eyes should have been, two deep fissures glowed like molten cracks in volcanic rock. The titan spoke again. Daniel, hearing my name in its voice, tore through me like a blade made of fire and ice. My knees buckled. I fell onto the platform, clutching my chest as pain flared through the beam of light still anchored to me. I forced the words out between gasps. Stop, please. The ancient voice shook the chamber. You cannot stop what has begun. You have returned the breath. The forest above awakens. A gust of burning wind blasted upward from the abyss, nearly knocking me off the platform. I shielded my face with my arms. The air tasted like scorched soil, ancient and metallic. I glanced toward the tear in the ceiling. The forest was no longer recognizable. Trees were uprooting themselves, twisting into new shapes, branches knitted together like interlocking fingers. The ground shifted in broad waves, as though something enormous moved beneath it. Animals fled in chaotic herds, their silhouettes distorted, as though the transformation touched even them. The shadow creature spoke softly. The two worlds will merge, the titan of the buried and the forest of the living. Your role is only beginning. I staggered to my feet, gripping the edge of the platform. My voice shook. What role? I am not part of this. I am not yours. The shadow leaned closer, its eyes dim pinpoints of hunger. You are of us. Your father hid you, but he could not unmake what you are. My father. A memory flashed through me the night he told me never to return to the cabin after dark. The fear in his eyes, the way he insisted the woods were listening. He had known all along. Something cracked behind me. I turned. The titan had pulled one leg free from the abyss. The limb, massive and covered in plates of stone, landed on the cavern floor, shattering it. The impact sent a ripple of energy across the chamber, feeling almost like a second heartbeat joining the first. The faceless figures screamed silently, their bodies arching as though absorbing the wave. The titan reached upward again, toward the tear in the ceiling. Its fingers dug into the rock, widening the opening. Shafts of unnatural light poured in. When the titan roared again, I felt the sound inside my skull more than in my ears. You will complete the passage. I shook my head violently. No, I will not let you. I will not lead anything. The shadow creature drifted behind me, blocking escape. You misunderstand. You already have. The beam of light from my chest surged brighter, tearing through the ceiling and striking the twisted sky. The vortex above widened. The forest transformed faster now, roots lifting from the soil like tendrils, trees bending into spirals, the land reshaping itself as if welcoming something long forgotten. The Titan lifted its head toward the sky, its chest expanded, it inhaled. The chamber shuddered as the Titan drew breath for the first time in ages, a breath that drew air from both worlds at once. The wind howled through the cavern and into the abyss, pulled toward the Titan's lungs like an offering. I fell to my knees. The air was being drained from around me. I couldn't breathe. I clawed at my throat. Gasping, the faceless figures collapsed in waves, their forms crumpling under the pressure. The shadow creature did not falter. The Titan exhaled. A shockwave blasted through the chamber, hurling me backward across the platform. My body struck stone with brutal force. Pain flared down my spine. The light from my chest flickered but did not vanish. The Titan's voice filled the chamber again. The breath of the forest returns. The time has come. The shadow creature glided forward. Now, Daniel, go to the surface. Lead the awakening. I staggered up, shaking uncontrollably. The idea of going back to the forest above felt like stepping into a nightmare with no exit. I will not do this. The shadow leaned close, whispering, "You cannot stop what you are." I clenched my fists. Something hot flickered within my chest. A spark of defiance. Maybe I could not close what had opened, but maybe I could choose what came next. I turned away from the Titan, from the abyss, from the shadow creature, and I ran. The cavern shook behind me as the Titan rose higher, but I kept running, heading toward the only possible escape. Up toward the torn ceiling, toward the nightmare above, toward whatever waited for me in the transformed forest. I climbed toward the torn ceiling, dragging myself across unstable stone as the cavern convulsed beneath my feet. The Titan's awakening shook the world like a creature stretching after centuries of sleep. Each tremor sent shards of rock crashing down around me. Heat surged upward from the abyss, carrying the scent of scorched earth and something far older. The air grew thinner, my lungs burned, but I kept climbing, reaching for the jagged edges of the opening above. Below me, the Ancient One continued to rise, its massive form pushed upward through the cavern, shedding layers of stone the way an insect breaks from a cocoon. Glowing fissures deepened across its limbs. Its chest expanded with each colossal breath. The heartbeat that had once pulsed gently through the woods now thundered with such force it felt like the earth itself had a second pulse. The shadow creature watched from a platform of stone, its form shifting like dark flames. It did not pursue me. It did not need to. It knew I had nowhere to go but upward. My fingers scraped against the jagged edges of the tear in the ceiling. I pulled myself through and collapsed into the open air. The forest was gone, or rather, it had become something unrecognizable. Trees twisted upward like spiraled columns of bone, their branches writhing in patterns that no wind caused. Leaves shimmered with iridescent colors, shifting like insect wings. The ground rippled beneath the roots, as though something massive moved beneath the soil. The sky churned in a vortex of dark clouds, glowing faintly red from the light of the awakening below. The forest breathed, Each inhale bent the trees inward. Each exhale released them in a sweeping outward motion. I stared in horror. This was no longer a place shaped by nature. It was a living organism responding to the Titan's rise. A deep roar echoed from below, and the forest responded with a shudder. I forced myself to stand, wiping dirt and blood from my palms. The beam of light connecting me to the cavern below had dimmed, but did not vanish entirely. It pulsed faintly, tugging at me like a leash made of energy. Somewhere in this monstrous landscape, the shadow creature's voice whispered, "Daniel," not out loud, not in the wind, but through the roots, through the soil. The forest itself was speaking with its voice. I stumbled forward, pushing through tangled brush that moved as though resisting me. Roots slithered aside, then reformed behind me like they were closing a wound. The ground trembled again, throwing me off balance. A jagged fissure tore open a few feet away, glowing red with heat from the rising Titan. I stared into it. Something massive shifted in the depths. I tore my gaze away, unkept moving. The cabin appeared through the warped trees, but it no longer looked like the home my father once kept. It sat crooked on shifting soil, lifted partially by rising roots that cradled it like skeletal hands. The wood groaned with each tremor, bending but not breaking, as though the forest itself held it upright. Windows glowed faintly with red light, as if reflecting the Titan's heartbeat. I approached slowly, fighting the instinct to turn and run back into the chaotic woods. But running would not help me. There was nowhere left untouched by this transformation. The forest was alive, and it knew me. The door creaked open before I touched it. Inside, the cabin had twisted along with the world outside. Walls elongated unnaturally. Shadows clung like living creatures. The floor pulsed beneath my boots. The cracked mirror from earlier now stretched across half the wall, reflecting not my image, but the distorted forest outside. From the far corner of the room, a whisper rose. "Daniel." I turned sharply. A figure stood partially concealed in shadow, not the faceless creatures, not the Titan, not the shadow creature. This figure was human, or appeared human. He stepped into the light. My father. I froze. My chest tightened so violently it felt like I couldn't breathe. His face was the same as I remembered. The lines around his eyes, the shape of his jaw, the sadness always lingering behind his expression. But he looked wrong. His skin flickered subtly, like light passing through mist. His feet did not quite touch the floor. His voice carried the faint echo of something hollow. He wasn't alive, but he wasn't gone either. "Daniel, you should not have come back." Emotion surged through me, raw and painful. I stepped toward him. "Dad?" He lifted a trembling hand. "Do not come closer." His voice cracked, not with fear, but with warning. I stopped. Tears burned my eyes. You knew what was happening here. You knew what I was." He looked away, his form rippling as though struggling to hold itself together. "I tried to protect you. I tried to keep them from finding you. But the forest remembers its own." He met my eyes again. "And you are its own." I shook my head violently. "No, I am not part of this. I will not help them." My father's expression twisted with pain. "You already have." The cabin trembled violently as another roar erupted from below. Roots burst through the floorboards. The walls bent inward. My father's form flickered. He spoke with urgency. "The Titan is not your enemy. The shadow is not your master. But the awakening cannot be undone." I stepped back as the beam of light from my chest pulsed brighter, responding to the Titan's rise. "Dad, tell me what to do. How do I stop this?" He reached toward me, his hand almost touching mine. "You cannot stop it, but you can change what awakens." Before I could speak, a massive tremor ripped through the ground. The cabin shattered. The floor split open. My father's figure dissolved into swirling mist. The forest roared above us. The Titan roared below, and the beam of light dragged me upward, pulling me out of the collapsing cabin. I flew into the spiraling sky, surrounded by twisting branches, churning clouds, and shards of red light. And as I rose, the Ancient One's voice followed me. "Come, Daniel, the final awakening begins." The force pulling me upward tightened like an invisible hook lodged deep within my ribs. The wind howled in my ears as the forest dropped away beneath me. Roots writhed like serpents across the shifting ground. Trees bowed inward, bending in unnatural arcs as if paying homage to the Titan rising from the depths. The sky churned in vast spirals of black and crimson, splitting open in jagged seams of light. My body spun through the air, weightless and powerless against the pull of the beam that rose from my chest. Each pulse of red light synced with the ancient heartbeat rumbling from below. The entire world around me twisted in rhythm with it. My vision blurred, streaked with shadows and flashes of impossible shapes forming inside the storm. The voice of the Ancient One echoed from far below. "Daniel, rise." My breath caught in my throat. I tried to resist, clawing at the force, dragging me upward. But my fingers closed on empty air. My arms burned. My lungs felt ready to collapse. But my ascent did not slow. The forest shrunk into a writhing mass of dark roots and spiraling trees. The cabin collapsed into the shifting ground, swallowed by the rising land. And then I broke through the forest canopy. A violent gust of air hit me as I emerged into the swirling sky. The clouds churned in massive rings, like the turning gears of a machine buried within the atmosphere. Red lightning cracked through the storm, illuminating colossal shapes hidden in the clouds. Shapes that moved, shapes that watched. My heartbeat faltered. These were not clouds. They were forms, silhouettes of immense beings shifting behind the storm veil, their outlines vague but unmistakably alive. Each movement sent waves rippling through the sky, as though the heavens themselves were liquid under their weight. The voice whispered again, "They answer your call." I shook my head, dizzy. My voice tore out in a desperate breath. I did not call them, not on purpose. The storm responded with a low, rolling growl, Intention is irrelevant. The beam holding me in midair flickered, suspended between sky and earth like a bridge of pulsing energy. The higher I rose, the more the world below distorted. The forest writhed beneath the storm, reshaping itself with every quaking breath. The fissure in the earth widened further, and the Titan's massive body emerged fully into the open air. Its head broke through the forest floor, shattering roots and stone alike. Red light spilled from the cracks in its face. Its molten fissure eyes glowed brighter, now unhindered by the cavern roof. Its breath formed spirals of steaming air that bent the treetops downward. The Titan lifted its face toward me, and the sky answered. Thunder tore through the atmosphere. Lightning split into branching lines that touched the Titan's stone plate. When the bolt struck, the Titan roared, shaking the air so violently it nearly knocked the breath from my lungs. The tremor traveled through the beam that held me, vibrating against my bones. Below me, the forest convulsed again. A massive section of earth rose upward, as though the land itself attempted to stand. Roots curled outward, forming spiraled towers that climbed toward the sky in mimicry of the Titan's ascent. The shadow creature emerged from the forest canopy, rising effortlessly on a plume of dark mist. Its form bent and twisted with unnatural grace as it drifted upward to meet me. It hovered a few feet away, its dim eyes glowing with grim purpose. Daniel, the time is now. The way must be completed. I shook with rage and terror. No, this is wrong. This is not what I am meant for. The shadow tilted its head. You cannot deny what you are. I pointed downward at the Titan tearing its way into the world, at the forest contorting into a living sea of roots, at the sky splitting open to reveal shapes of unthinkable scale. This will destroy everything. The shadow replied with stillness. Change is not destruction. Awakening is not death. It is return. I felt coldness crawling up my spine. A memory surged from deep within my mind. Not mine, yet mine. A memory of the forest as it once was vast, endless, alive in ways the modern world could not imagine. A time when energies moved freely between worlds, when humans and the beings beneath the earth shared whispers through roots and wind. Then came silence. Then came separation. Until now, the beam of light from my chest pulsed again. A second pulse echoed from the Titan. A third answered from the sky. The worlds were speaking. The sky ripped wider. A colossal silhouette leaned into view. Its shape was impossible to comprehend. A vast arching back, limbs like mountains, eyes like distant stars burning through the storm. It moved with slow, deliberate purpose, watching the Titan rise from the earth. Another silhouette appeared behind it, then another. My breath shattered inside my chest. There was not one Titan waking. There were many. The shadow creature drifted closer, its whisper curling against my ear like cold smoke. The ancient ones above, the ancient ones below. You are the bridge. You are the breath. You are the way. The beam flared violently. My body spasmed with pain. I screamed, unable to contain the force tearing through me. The red light expanded outward, forming a halo around my limbs. My vision shook. Stop, I begged. Stop, please." But the ancient voice rumbled from the Titan again. "Do not fear what remembers you." The Sky Titan leaned closer. Its massive eye, larger than a house, broke through the storm. It blinked once, slow and terrible. A beam of pale light shot from its gaze, connecting with the red beam from my chest. When the two lights joined, the air erupted with a thunderclap so loud I thought the world had split in half. The storm froze. Time slowed. I hung suspended between two worlds in the gaze of a Sky Titan and the breath of an Earth Titan. The beams locked, binding me in a cage of pure energy. Then the shadow creature whispered softly, "It begins." The combined energy ignited. A spiral of light exploded outward from my body. The sky cracked open fully, revealing an ocean of shapes beyond the clouds. An entire world of colossi waking into view. The forest below answered with a roar of shifting roots and rising land. The world was becoming something new, something ancient, something alive, and I was the spark that lit it. The light grew blinding. I closed my eyes as the storm swallowed everything. And then silence. Silence held for a single impossible instant, a moment where time felt carved out of the world, suspended in pure white light. My body floated weightless between the two titans, one rising from the cracked earth, the other descending through the shattered sky. The beams from their eyes and from my chest connected, binding me in a blazing triangle of energy that hummed with ancient force. Every breath felt stolen, every heartbeat forced to match the rhythm of something vast and primordial. Then the world moved again. The light convulsed outward in a spiraling shockwave. Clouds tore apart like thin fabric. The earth below rippled in expanding rings. Forests twisted into new geometries. Mountains bowed inward. Rivers bent their courses as though obeying a forgotten command. The very shape of the land seemed to buckle under the surge of awakening. I screamed as the energy tore through me, but no sound escaped. The air had thickened into something heavy and electric. My limbs shook violently. My vision fractured into overlapping images of sky, earth, roots, and darkness. I felt myself pulled in every direction at once, as though the world were trying to tear me apart to fit its new form. The shadow creature hovered at the edge of the vortex, its formless body rippling with dark anticipation. It did not intervene. It simply watched, waiting. Below, the Earth Titan raised its head fully into the swirling storm. Its massive body flexed, stone plates cracking and falling away to reveal sinew like woven roots, glowing faintly with red energy. Its voice rumbled upward. The breath is restored. Above, the Sky Titan echoed with a sound like distant thunder. The way is open. The beams between us pulsed stronger, brighter. I felt a violent tug deep within my chest, as though something inside me were being pulled out, extracted like a thread of glowing fiber. My consciousness swayed. My mind felt stretched thin. "What are you taking from me?" The shadow creature drifted closer, its whisper sliding like cold smoke across my ear. "Not taking, revealing." I tried to pull away, but the beams held me motionless. My heart raced until it felt ready to burst. Memories flooded me. Memories I didn't recognize. A forest before humans walked its paths. A world alive in ways modern eyes could never understand. Titans speaking in pulses of light and rhythm. Humans who once carried their whispers like songs in their blood. The severing of the connection. The long silence that followed. These were not visions. They were memories desperately trying to anchor themselves in a mind that had forgotten them. My mind. The light surged again. Another shockwave exploded across the sky. The clouds peeled back entirely, revealing a vast expanse of darkness beyond a cosmic void. Alive with shifting silhouettes of titanic forms. They moved slowly, gracefully, like mountains drifting through water. A cold realization struck me. The titans I saw were only the first. More were coming. The beam from my chest flared, as bright as a dying star. My body arched painfully. I could feel something tearing open within me, a dormant part awakened by force. The forest below roared, yes, roared, as land masses shifted like muscles contracting, and then a new voice joined the others, a voice from inside me. We remember. My eyes widened in terror. The voice did not echo like the titans. It did not vibrate like the forest. It came from somewhere deeper, from a place beneath thought, beneath memory. Who are you? The answer shook every atom in my body. We are the part you left behind, the part your father feared, the part the forest called home. I screamed aloud this time, a raw, human sound swallowed by the cataclysm around me. The shadow creature finally drifted closer, its outline sharpening into something vaguely humanoid. Its eyes glowed like dim embers. Do not fear the remembering, fear the forgetting, fear the moment you believed you were only human. The light surged again. My mind fractured. Images blurred into streaks of motion. Shapes bled together. The world twisted. And then I saw them. Faces dozens, maybe hundreds, superimposed over my own reflection in the light. Some human, some almost human, some made of roots and stone, some ancient beyond comprehension. Each face whispered a piece of the same sentence. We are you. No, I am Daniel. I am me. The faces spiraled around me, forming a ring of shifting reflections. Daniel is only the name they gave you. The woods gave you another. The sky titan leaned closer. Its colossal eye filled my entire vision. The molten fissures within it pulsed with rhythmic calculation. You will speak your true name. I shook my head violently. I don't have another name. I am not part of this, the shadow creature whispered. Then why do you hear us? The light surged again in a violent pulse that nearly blinded me. My body convulsed. The forest roared louder. The earth titan lifted its arms toward me. The sky titan extended its massive form downward, and the voice inside me whispered a single word, a word I did not understand, a word that felt like a chain snapping free inside my soul. It echoed through me, ancient and powerful. I spoke it aloud before I realized what I was doing. The moment the word left my mouth, the world reacted. The sky cracked open into 1,000 lines of burning white. The ground split into enormous ravines. The wind stopped completely. The titans froze mid-motion. Even the shadow creature stiffened as though caught in the grasp of something older than itself. The beam from my chest collapsed inward. The world folded, and everything went black. Darkness swallowed everything: the sky, the earth, the titans, even the light that had bound me. It was not the simple darkness of night, but a deeper void, one without direction or sound. I felt myself drifting, suspended in an expanse where time had no meaning. My body was weightless, my heartbeat silent. Even breath felt unnecessary here. Then the whispers began, not from around me, from inside. They rose like faint echoes from a distant memory, layering over one another until they formed a chorus. We are here. We are awake. We are you. I tried to speak, but no sound came. The darkness rippled in response to my unspoken panic. Shapes began to form, shadows that twisted into silhouettes, some tall as trees, some crawling like roots spreading through soil. Their outlines shifted constantly, never settling into one recognizable form. One stepped forward. Its body flickered between human and something else. Something made of branches, stone, and the memory of faces I had seen in the cavern. When it spoke, its voice was a quiet tremor. Daniel is not your name. A cold vibration passed through me. I forced myself to respond. Then what is? The silhouette's head tilted in a slow, deliberate motion. Your father knew. The forest remembered. You had forgotten. Another voice joined the first, my father's voice, soft and weary. I tried to protect you from it. His figure appeared beside the silhouette, but this time less flickering, more solid. The darkness around us pulsed as he stepped closer. Dad, why did you hide this from me? He lifted a hand as though to touch my shoulder, but his fingers dissolved into mist before making contact. Because names have power, and yours was never meant to be spoken. The chorus of whispers grew louder, until now the void quaked. A pulse of red light spread outward, illuminating the shadows. For an instant, the darkness peeled back. I saw a forest made of bones. I saw mountains walking like giants. I saw rivers moving against gravity. I saw titans slumbering in a world beneath ours. Then the darkness folded over the vision again. My father's expression twisted with sorrow. Your name was carved in the roots before you were born. It tied you to the forest. It bound you to the titans. It made you the way. The word echoed in my mind, the name I had spoken, that shattered the world. I whispered into the void. What does it mean? The shadows recoiled, as if the question held weight. It means remembering. The silhouette stepped closer. Its form shifted into an elongated shape with hollow eyes and ribs like bent branches. When you spoke your true name, you tore open the barrier between worlds. You awakened those above and those below. My voice cracked with anger. I didn't want this. I wanted to stop. The void responded with a low tremor. Awakening cannot be undone, but it can be guided. My breath caught. Guided how? The shadows parted as a new presence appeared. The shadow creature, its form was more defined here, less like drifting mist and more like a tall, slender figure carved from living night. Its dim eyes glowed with calm certainty. You stand between worlds now. You are the bridge. What rises will answer to the one who bears the name. I shook my head violently. I won't be their leader. I won't let this world be destroyed. The creature's voice was a whisper of patience. Destruction is the fear of the forgetting, but you are the remembering. The darkness around us split suddenly, revealing flashes of the world outside. Titans rising from the forest floor, roots coiling across mountains, storms spiraling around immense silhouettes in the sky, human screams echoing faintly beneath the thunder. The world was tearing itself apart. I turned on the shadow creature. Then help me stop this. It bowed its head. That is why you were brought here. A faint light began to grow behind me. I turned slowly. My father stood in its center, illuminated by a warmth that did not belong in this void. He spoke softly. You are not meant to serve the Titans or destroy them. You are meant to speak the second name. I frowned. Second name? The shadow creature nodded. Every key has two turns. One opens, one closes. My pulse quickened. If I speak this second name, will it stop the awakening? The creature hesitated. It will change its path, redirect what rises, bind what would break the world. I turned to my father. Do you know it? He closed his eyes, pain in every line of his face. No, the name is not mine to speak. The void trembled. Only you can speak it. My breaths came sharp and uneven. How do I find it? What is it? The answer rose from every shadow, every whisper, every trembling echo in the dark. Remember, the darkness shattered. A flood of memories surged into me. Not visions, not fragments, but entire lifetimes I never lived. Generations of voices speaking through roots. Titans carving paths beneath the earth. Humans walking between worlds before forgetting what they once were. A single word surfaced, a name buried beneath centuries of silence. The moment it formed on my tongue, the void exploded with blinding light. My father's voice echoed. Once you speak it, there is no returning. The shadow creature whispered the final warning. Choose with purpose. The world will follow. I inhaled deeply. The name hovered at the edge of my voice. And then I spoke it. The instant the second name left my mouth, the void erupted. Light did not simply return. It detonated outward like a silent blast, shredding the darkness into spirals of white and red. The force hammered through my skull, ripping through every thought and memory as if the world tried to rewrite itself in a single breath. My body arched, suspended in a storm of unmaking, while the universe around me bent into shapes that defied meaning. The whispers stopped. So did the heartbeat of the Ancient One. So did the roar of the forest. For one impossible moment, the world was utterly still. Then a crack split the void. A thin line of brilliant gold lightning tore the darkness open. The crack widened, widening still, until the void peeled away like burning fabric. Through the tearing seam, the world beyond came into view, changed, fractured, and trembling under the weight of the name I had spoken. The forest was no longer a forest. It had become an expanse of rising roots, spiraled into colossal arches that supported the sky like living pillars. Through them pulsed veins of white gold light, carrying the name like a command written into the structure of creation. The ground shifted in broad waves, not in destruction but in reformation. Mountains rose like breaking ribs, rivers reversed course. The land bent into patterns older than human memory. Above, the sky titans paused. For the first time since their emergence, they stopped moving. Their massive silhouettes hung motionless in the storm, like mountains suspended in air. The light in their eyes dimmed, their limbs folded inward. They lowered their heads as if bowing. Below, the earth titan froze beneath the shifting forest. Its massive form, half stone and half living root, ceased its rise. The fissures across its body stopped glowing. The roar that had shaken the world fell silent. The second name had halted them, but not destroyed them. They waited. The shadow creature materialized beside me. Its form was sharper than I had ever seen, as though the second name had carved definition into its darkness. Its eyes glowed faintly with an unfamiliar emotion. Not hunger, reverence. The worlds have heard you. My breath trembled. What does that mean? What did I do? The creature lifted its head toward the sky. You have given them direction. The storm clouds above unraveled into long, sweeping arcs of gold light, forming spirals that mirrored the twisting roots below. The world flowed into new shapes, as if reorganizing itself around a central axis. The axis was me. I felt the truth in my bones. The second name was not a command. It was alignment, a choice, a direction for the awakening to follow. The shadow creature drifted closer. You have not stopped the merging, but you have changed its purpose. The titans now wait for your will. I staggered backward, my heart pounding, my voice cracked. I don't want this. I do not want to lead anything. The creature's head tilted gently, and yet you already do. A tremor rippled across the landscape. The pillar-like roots shifted slightly, responding to the energy in my chest. The beam of red light that once bound me was gone, replaced by a faint golden glow that radiated from beneath my skin. My father's voice echoed faintly, as though carried across lifetimes. Beware what you awaken. I turned sharply. His ghostly form flickered on one of the rising root pillars, half-formed, his expression pained. Daniel. I reached toward him instinctively. Dad, is it over? Did the second name fix everything? His eyes held sorrow deeper than the void. Nothing can return to what it was, but you can choose what it becomes. The words struck me with more force than the name itself. My father's form flickered again, his edges dissolving into streaks of white. Before he vanished completely, he whispered, "Guide them." Then he was gone. A deep vibration rolled through the sky. I looked up. The sky titan nearest me shifted, slowly, deliberately. Its eye opened again, no longer red, but glowing gold, reflecting the second name. It watched me in silence, waiting. The earth titan below stirred, but not with the violent hunger from before. Its movements were slow, exploratory, like a creature waking into a new world. The faceless beings emerged from the roots, their bodies trembling but no longer twisted in pain. They turned their empty faces upward, sensing the shift. The land began to quiet, the storm winds softened, the forest's roar faded into a deep, resonant hum. The shadow creature hovered before me, speaking softly. The awakening continues, but now it follows your voice. What will you tell them, Daniel? My throat tightened. I stared at the world transformed around me. This was not the apocalypse the shadow creature once promised. It was something stranger, a rebirth, a world bending toward a direction I had chosen without understanding the consequence. I breathed through shaking lungs. What if I choose wrong? The shadow's voice carried no judgment. Then the world will follow you into error, as it would have followed others into ruin. My breath stilled. This responsibility was not a power, it was a burden. The weight of titans, the breath of forests, the memory of ancient worlds, all waiting on a human who never wanted any of it. I closed my eyes. In the golden hum of the transformed world, something shifted inside me. A clarity, a thread of meaning woven through the voices, the memories, the awakening. The second name had not created this path. It had revealed the one that was already there. I opened my eyes. Tell me, what is the next step? The shadow creature bowed its head. Command the first movement. I exhaled slowly, then spoke with all the strength I had left. Let the titans stand down. The words echoed across the world. The Earth Titan lowered itself slowly, resting one massive arm against the trembling land. The Sky Titans retracted into the clouds, still visible but no longer descending. The storm light dimmed into a soft gold glow. The first command had been heard. My body sagged with exhaustion. The shadow creature whispered, "The world listens, and it will continue to listen until the final movement begins." I swallowed hard. Final movement? What final movement? The creature's eyes dimmed. "You will know when the second name demands it." A cold shiver ran through me. The second name had changed the world, but it had also awakened something inside me, something that was not finished. And as the golden glow faded slowly from the sky, I knew the awakening was only at its dawn. The world held its breath. For the first time since the awakening began, silence settled across the land. Not the oppressive, suffocating silence of the void, but a vast and living quiet one shaped by choice rather than catastrophe. The titans no longer roared, the forest no longer convulsed, the sky no longer burned with spiraling storms. The world waited. I stood atop a pillar of roots that had risen beneath my feet, lifted by the earth itself as gently as a hand raises a child. The golden glow pulsing under my skin dimmed to a warm thrum. The echo of the second name still resonating faintly inside me. My breaths came uneven, my body trembling from exhaustion and something deeper, an ache behind the ribs where the name had carved its place. Below, the land shifted slowly into stability. The great arches of roots lowered themselves like tired beasts curling to rest. The ground flattened into long, sweeping plains marked by spiraled patterns. Farther out, the remains of the once familiar forest stretched into unnatural symmetry, trees aligned in geometric formations that whispered with faint energy. Above, the sky titans drifted into the upper clouds, their colossal forms casting dim shadows, but showing no signs of aggression. Their eyes glowed gold instead of red, reflecting the new direction the world now followed. The shadow creature floated beside me, its form calmer, more defined. It moved with measured grace, as though the chaos no longer fueled its existence. "You have done what many could not." I stared at the horizon, my voice a broken whisper. "I did not ask for any of this." The creature's head tilted slightly. Asking is a human act. Becoming is something else. A sharp wind cut across the plains, sending faint ripples through the restored land. I wrapped my arms around myself, the cold biting through my clothes more fiercely than anything I had felt within the cavern. It was grounding, painfully human amid everything that was not. My thoughts churned. The titans had obeyed my command. The forest had shifted with my voice. The second name had brought a new balance, but balance was not peace. It was merely a pause. The faceless beings emerged from between the roots, stepping carefully into the open plains. Their bodies trembled softly, no longer writhing in agony. They gathered beneath my pillar, tilting their blank faces up at me. Their motions were unsure, hesitant, like creatures seeing the world for the first time. I climbed down toward them as my boots touched the ground. Back, not in fear, but in reverence. I raised a hand. "It's all right, I won't hurt you." One of them reached out with a trembling hand, touching the air near my arm but not quite making contact. When it sensed the warmth from my skin, it emitted a soft hum, a sound almost like relief. These beings had been prisoners of the earth, titans awakening, bound by the first name. The second name had freed them. Before I could speak again, the ground shifted behind me. A new fissure cracked open calmly, not violently, revealing a deep, glowing trench. Gold light seeped from below, not like molten energy, but like the soft illumination of an ancient lantern long forgotten. The shadow creature drifted closer. The world reshapes with purpose now. It answers you. I swallowed hard. I never wanted it to answer me. The creature regarded me with a stillness that was almost sympathetic. "It does not matter what you wanted. It matters what you are." A tremor of unease rippled through my chest. "What am I?" The creature drifted downward, swirling its long limbs around the glowing fissure. "You are the voice that binds the awakened. You are the breath between the worlds. You are the heir to the first name and the bearer of the second." I shook my head. "No, I am human." The creature's whisper cut through the calm. "You were human. You are becoming." Cold settled in my stomach. The shift in the world was not done. Neither was mine. The fissure widened again, and a soft golden mist rose from the deep. Through it, faint sound drifted upward like chanting, but not made by any living mouth. It vibrated through the air in steady rhythm, a chorus of voices that belonged to neither titan nor forest nor faceless beings. Something else was calling, something new or something old. The faceless beings froze, their bodies stiffening, the shadow creature's flickering form steady. It begins. I stepped back, pulse racing. What begins? The creature did not look at me. Its gaze was fixed entirely on the glowing fissure. The turning, a chill broke across my spine. Turning into what? Before the creature answered, the fissure erupted in a column of golden light. Shapes formed within the glow, humanoid silhouettes, taller than humans but smaller than titans. Their bodies were composed of intertwined roots and strands of light. Their eyes glowed like molten gold. They rose not with violence, but with purpose, stepping onto the ground with calm, resonant footsteps. The ground bent beneath them, acknowledging their presence. The shadow creature whispered, almost reverently, the first of the rootborn. The beings formed a circle around me. They did not speak aloud, yet their presence vibrated through the very air. I felt the energy from them like a warm tide, ancient yet new. One stepped forward. Its voice echoed directly into my mind. We rise because you spoke the second name. We rise because the worlds must be guided. We rise to stand between titans and humankind. My throat tightened. Are you here to replace us? The being's response resonated softly. Not replace. Balance. The circle tightened, not in threat, but in unity. The Ancient One breathes beneath the land. The sky watchers drift above. Forest has awakened, and now the root-born stand. I stepped back, overwhelmed. What do you want from me? The being lifted an arm made of twisting roots and shimmering light. You will guide the awakening to its final movement. When the third calling begins, my breath stopped. Third calling. What is that? Their bodies pulsed in unison, emitting a single answer. Your choosing. The shadow creature spoke softly behind me, almost like a warning. The world will not remain calm forever. When the third calling comes, everything will turn again. I stared at the rootborn, at the transformed land, at the steady breathing of a world reinventing itself. What if I refuse? The being's golden eyes dimmed gently. Then the world will choose for you. The sky above darkened slightly, not in threat, but in anticipation. The calm was only temporary. The turning had begun. The calm did not last, even as the golden light hummed across the reshaped land, and the rootborn stood in perfect symmetry around me. A tension threaded itself through the air, a subtle vibration beneath the soil, like something shifting deep within the bones of the world. It was not violent, it was not loud, but it carried intent. Something beneath us had begun to move again. The rootborn sensed it first. Their glowing eyes flickered in unison. Their bodies turned slightly toward the eastern horizon, as though a single invisible thread pulled them. The shadow creature drifted closer to me, its silhouette stretching long across the ground. The turning is not complete. I swallowed the tightness in my throat. You said the second name would guide the awakening. It has, but guidance is not the end. It is the door. A pulse vibrated beneath my feet, as gentle as a heartbeat, yet it sent a chill crawling up up my spine. I stared down at the spiraling root patterns etched into the plains. They were moving slowly, almost imperceptibly, but they were shifting like lines on a living map, adjusting to new routes. The shadow creature's voice curled around me like smoke. The third calling will rise from what sleeps beneath. I stepped back. The fear I thought I had mastered tightened again around my ribs. I don't want another calling. I can't handle another. The creature tilted its head. You cannot choose its arrival, only your answer. The golden fissure from earlier began to widen once more. The light that seeped from it deepened from warm gold into a richer, deeper hue, one tinted with red. The sound rising from below changed tone, from chanting to something more rhythmic, breathing, slow, controlled, purposeful. The earth titan, even frozen in stillness. It was waking further. The root-born closest to the fissure knelt, their hands pressed to the ground, their bodies flexed with a slow, synchronized exhale. One of them lifted its head toward me. The ancient one stirs again, but not in hunger, in remembrance. My pulse quickened. What does that mean? The root-born responded with calm certainty. Memory is returning to the titans. Memory that was severed before humankind forgot its place. The ground pulsed again. This time, the root patterns shifted faster, curling outward into new spirals. Some extended toward me, others stretched toward the horizon. The shadow creature drifted toward one of the spirals. They seek alignment, and you must decide how the world aligns with them. A tremor of panic clawed at my chest. I am not ready to decide anything. The creature's whisper was soft, almost pitying. Readiness is human. Necessity is something else. The plains darkened as a shadow swept across the horizon. For a moment, I feared the sky titans had returned in force. But when I looked up, the clouds parted gently, not torn apart by violence, but opening like a gate. Through the opening drifted a new form, a titan smaller than the sky watchers, yet larger than mountains. Its body was woven not from stone or storm, but from root and branch and starlight. It moved with eerie grace, each step sending ripples through the plains. Its limbs extended into fractal patterns. Its eyes glowed with a pale silver light. The root-born bowed instantly. The shadow creature lowered its head. I froze. What is that? The answer came from every direction at once, from the ground, from the sky, from the root-born, and from something deep inside me. The first remembered. A cold tremor rolled through my bones. The titan stepped closer, its vast form shimmering beneath the golden sky. It lowered itself slightly, studying me with its silver gaze. The world shifted around us. The golden plain darkened into deeper hues. The spiraling roots began to lift from the soil, rising into branching pillars that circled me. The first remembered extended an arm made of roots braided with light. When it spoke, its voice was quieter than the others, but infinitely older. You who bear the second name, hear now the path to the third calling. My throat dried. I could barely speak. What path? The titan pressed its hand to the ground. The spiraling roots convulsed and reshaped, forming a vast map across the plains. Mountains, rivers, forests, caverns, and beneath them dark shapes shifting like breaths held in stone. The first remembered lifted its gaze to me again. The world breathes in 3 movements: awakening, turning, becoming. I stepped backward, becoming into what? The Titan's silver eyes glimmered. What you choose. The shadow creature's voice brushed my ear. This is the burden of the name, to decide the shape of the world that follows. The tremor beneath the earth grew stronger. The golden fissure widened, spilling red light now intertwined with gold. The earth titan shifted beneath the soil, not rising, not breaking free, but turning, as though adjusting itself to a new purpose. The first remembered, placed one massive hand upon the ground, steadying the tremors. The ancient one remembers its true shape, but its path must be set by you. The weight of that truth slammed into me. My voice wavered. Why me? Why was I chosen for this? The Titan answered without hesitation. Because your blood carries memory untainted by forgetting. Because you hear what others cannot. Because you spoke the first word long before your birth. My knees weakened. I don't even know what the third calling is. The Titan straightened, towering above the world. You will know soon. When the world demands its becoming, a pulse surged upward from the earth titan below. This one was stronger, sharper, urgent. The sky deepened in color. The wind shifted direction. Even the rootborn stepped back, nervous now, not reverent. The shadow creature's form flickered. It begins sooner than expected. Another pulse. The golden plains trembled. The spiraled roots began to glow red at their edges. The first remembered turned its great head toward the horizon, where a distant line of forest began to heave, as though pushed from within. I whispered, terrified, "Is the world becoming something dangerous?" The Titan answered quietly, "Only if you fear what comes next." The tremors intensified. The fissure erupted with mixed gold and red light, swirling upward like a pillar of flame. The first remembered stepped back. The shadow creature floated to my side again. "Daniel, your choosing is no longer distant." I stared at the rising light, knowing that whatever emerged next would demand a choice I could not avoid. The third calling had begun. The world inhaled, not the wind, not the trees, not even the titans themselves. It was the land, the very foundation of everything beneath my feet, that drew a long, trembling breath inward as if preparing for something immense. The golden plains quivered. The spiraling roots tightened like muscles bracing for impact. Even the sky seemed to pulse faintly, as though echoing the rhythm rising from the depths. The third calling had begun. I felt it before I understood it, a pressure blooming in my chest like another heartbeat layered atop my own. Slow, heavy, ancient, each pulse spread outward, resonating with the golden spirals in the earth. I staggered, clutching my ribs as heat flared beneath my skin. The shadow creature moved instantly to my side. "Do not resist it." I grit my teeth. "I am not trying to." The creature tilted its head, its dim eyes unreadable. "It is not pain you feel, it is recognition." The pressure intensified until it felt as though my lungs were made of fire. I gasped, Dropping to one knee, the rootborn encircled me, no longer calm, shifting nervously as the energy around us surged. The first remembered turned its massive head toward me, its silver eyes narrowed. It is the shaping breath. The moment before becoming, I forced out a trembling breath. Becoming into what? The Titan's response trembled through the plains. What you choose. Another pulse struck the ground. A crack formed along one of the golden spirals. Then another. The land split open in long, branching lines, not violently but with steady, deliberate expansion. Heat burst upward from the widening fissures, carrying the scent of stone and roots burning together. The shadow creature whispered, "The Ancient One rises to remember itself, and it calls for you." I shook my head, breath shuddering. I don't want this. My choosing shouldn't decide the fate of the world. The creature drifted closer. It is not the world that demands your choice. It is what you awakened within it. The crack beneath me widened suddenly. A beam of deep red and gold light burst upward, engulfing me in a wave of heat so intense it stole my breath. I cried out, falling backward as the beam rose, twisting into a spiraling column that reached toward the sky. The ground beneath the fissure heaved upward. Something was rising. A shape. A form I had seen only in memories not mine, but now it was waking into the world. The first remembered stepped back, lowering its massive frame in respect or fear, I could not tell which. The rootborn dropped to their knees. Even the shadow creature bowed its head. A colossal limb emerged from the fissure, not stone, not root, not storm, something new. The limb was shaped like an arm, but woven from interlocking golden roots, each glowing with inner red light. The air vibrated as it gripped the ground for leverage. The earth bent under its weight as though willingly offering support. A second limb followed. The being pulling itself from the fissure was larger than the rootborn, but smaller than the Titans. Its entire body shimmered with shifting textures of bark, light, and flowing runic patterns pulsing across its chest. Its head formed last, rising in a smooth spiral before settling into a humanoid shape, with eyes bright as molten gold. The first remembered bowed deeply, the first of the becoming. A chill froze my spine. Not a Titan. This was not a rootborn. This was something between, something new, something born of the third calling. It turned its blazing eyes toward me. The ground stilled. The world listened. Its voice entered my mind without sound. A whisper etched into the marrow of my bones. We rise because you breathe the second name. We rise because the old paths must be broken. We rise because the becoming begins with you. I staggered backward. I didn't create you. I don't know how. The being stepped forward, its footprints glowing as spirals spread outward beneath it. You did not create. You unveiled. You remembered for us. And now we remember through you. The pressure in my chest intensified again. My vision blurred at the edges. The shadow creature placed one elongated hand on my shoulder, steadying me. The breath seeks its shape, and you must give it one. The new being extended its arm toward me, its fingers spiraling like living branches. The world waits for your choice, not the titans, not the rootborn, not the shadows. You! My pulse slammed against my ribs. I whispered hoarsely, "What if I choose wrong?" The gold-eyed being answered gently, "Then the world will bend around your mistake as it bent around your awakening." The realization cracked through me like lightning. This was not about controlling the world. It was about shaping its next form, and I was already doing it with every breath. The plains trembled as more fissures opened. Spiral after spiral erupted upward, forming new columns of glowing roots. Shapes flickered inside them, more beings forming, waiting for direction. The first remembered lifted its massive head. "Your hesitation awakens many paths. You must close all but one." I felt dizzy. Close how? The titan lowered its glowing gaze. "Speak the breath." My throat tightened. "I don't know the breath." The shadow creature's whisper curled around me like smoke. "It is not a word. It is not a name. It is choice made aloud." The new being stepped closer, its golden eyes softening. "You decide the path of becoming. We follow." The spirals tightened around my ankles, lifting me gently into the air. The golden glow beneath my skin ignited, flowing upward into my chest. The world waited. The titans waited. The rootborn waited. The new beings waited. The third calling demanded its breath. I inhaled sharply. The decision, whatever it was, had to come now. I closed my eyes. My voice trembled as I whispered the beginning of the breath. The world shook. The fissures widened. The rising beings paused, waiting for my command. I opened my eyes, and I spoke the rest. The moment the breath left my lips, the world reacted as though it had been holding itself in suspense for centuries. A deep vibration surged through the golden plains, powerful enough to rattle the roots beneath my feet, yet strangely gentle. Like the pulse of a sleeping giant stirred awake by a soft whisper. The spiraled patterns in the ground froze mid-motion, suspended in glowing arcs of red and gold. The air thickened, humming with energy. What I had spoken was not a word. It was not even a command. It was intention made sound, and the world, every root, every titan, every being born of earth and sky heard it. The new being, the one woven of golden roots and molten lines, lifted its luminous face toward the tremoring sky. The glow in its chest intensified, pulsing in rhythm with the breath I had given shape to. It lowered its gaze to me. "We hear you." The words flooded my mind with an overwhelming warmth, ancient yet soothing. I staggered as the spirals beneath me realigned. This time, not in chaotic branching patterns, but in one single, clear direction toward the horizon where shadows pooled like ink. The first remembered titan stepped nearer, its massive form bending with reverence. Its silver eyes shimmered. "The path of becoming has been chosen." The shadow creature drifted close, its silhouette sharper than before. "And the world moves to follow." I shook my head, breath shallow. I didn't choose a path. I just wanted balance. I only wanted the world not to tear itself apart. The rootborn answered in calm resonance. Balance is a path, and you chose it. The fissures across the plains shifted all at once. Thousands of glowing veins aligned into a single unbroken line, stretching across the land. Far in the distance, the sky split in a soft, silent seam, not destructive an opening. The first remembered lifted one immense hand toward the horizon. The world opens for the joining. A cold shiver crept across my spine. Joining. What does that mean? The Titan's voice trembled with ancient weight. Earth to earth, sky to sky, breath to breath. The shadow creature whispered. It means harmony or conflict, depending on what answers the opening. A certain dread tightened in my throat. What could answer it? The creature did not respond. The answer came instead from deep within the fissures beneath my feet. A pulse, not red, not gold. A color I had no word for. Somewhere between shadow and memory. It rose from the depths, rippling outward like a tide. The rootborn stiffened. The first remembered stepped back. Even the new being, born of the third calling, shifted uneasily. The shadow creature's form flickered. This was not expected. The ground trembled again, harder this time. A fissure yawned open only a few steps from me. Darkness surged upward in a column of spiraling smoke, threaded with glimmering traces of ancient runes. The air thickened. The heat vanished. Cold poured across the plains. The world inhaled once more, but this breath was not mine. A voice rose from the depths, not a scream, not a roar, a whisper, the whisper I had heard the very first night in the woods, the whisper that had followed me from childhood, the whisper that had called me by the name I had forgotten. Daniel. My pulse stopped, my vision blurred. That voice, not a memory, a presence. The shadow creature recoiled, its form flickering violently. No, this is too soon. The first remembered, lowered its massive arms defensively over the rootborn. The new being stepped closer to me, shielding me with its spiraled limbs. The voice rose from the depths again. Daniel, you remember me? I shook my head, stepping backward until my heel hit a rising root pillar. My chest felt hollow, as though the breath I had spoken had been stolen back from me. No, I don't know you. The darkness surged higher, taking shape first as a column, then as a swirling mass of limbs, eyes, and shadows flickering through impossible geometry. The form was neither titan nor rootborn, nor shadow creature. It was something older, rawer, made of memory and forgetting stitched together. The shadow creature hissed, a revenant of the first silence. The first remembered steps shook the ground. It should not be awake. Not yet. The swirling form solidified further. At its center, a faint outline of a face emerged, distorted, shifting constantly like an unfinished carving. But the eyes were unmistakably human and familiar. My voice cracked. What are you? The answer struck like a physical blow. We are what you left behind. When you became the bridge, my knees buckled. The shadow creature whispered urgently, "Do not listen to it." But the revenant's gaze held me immobile. The world changes because you breathe, But we change because you forgot. It lifted an arm formed of swirling shadow and gold, pointing directly at me. The third calling was not the end. It is the unveiling, and we are the unremembered. My breath shook violently. I don't understand. The revenant surged forward, its voice deepening. You will. The rootborn rushed to protect me, weaving their limbs into a shield of glowing roots. The new being stood tall beside them. The first remembered roared, planting its massive hand between me and the revenant as the shadows lashed outward. The revenant recoiled, shrieking in a sound that twisted the air. The shadow creature pulled me back. You must choose again, now, or the unremembered will take your breath and shape the world in your place. The revenant stretched, growing taller, expanding like a wound across the sky. Daniel, we are you. The world erupted into chaos again, and I realized something terrifying. The third calling was not about the world becoming. It was about me becoming, or being overtaken by what I had refused to remember. The revenant towered over the golden plains like a wound cut into the sky itself. Its shape shifted endlessly, sometimes a figure, sometimes a storm, sometimes nothing but a swirling mass of shadow and memory. Its eyes, human yet not human, pierced through every defense the world had raised. Every breath it took twisted the air, bending light and pulling the land toward a darker rhythm. The unremembered had awakened. The rootborn tightened their shield around me, forming a barrier of spiraled roots glowing with molten gold. The new being stood directly in front of me, its luminous form expanding and contracting like a living pulse. The first remembered braced itself, limbs anchored into the plains, its massive silhouette trembling. The shadow creature moved behind me, whispering in a voice sharpened with urgency. Daniel, do not let it speak again. I swallowed hard, my breath trembling. Why? What happens if it does? The creature's dim eyes flickered. Because it speaks the names you abandoned, and those names want to replace you. The revenant's form expanded, stretching tendrils into the sky. Its voice rippled through the air again, softer this time, yet filled with the force of a tidal wave. Daniel, you left us behind, but we have always been here, waiting. My heart pounded violently. I staggered backward, but the new being reached out, steadying me with a spiraled arm of glowing roots. Do not fear what rises from you. Fear what you allow to guide you. The revenant shrieked, its form fracturing into jagged angles before knitting itself back together. Shadows spilled across the plains, racing across the ground like ink through paper. Every spiral pattern the world had formed under my choosing began to distort. The first remembered slammed its massive hand onto the earth. A shockwave of silver light rippled outward, slowing the shadow spread. The titan roared a deep, ancient sound that shook the sky and momentarily stunned the revenant, but only momentarily. The revenant's shifting face turned toward the titan, and its voice deepened. You forgot us. All of you forgot us. The ground cracked. Fissures of black and gold split outward from beneath the revenant. The spirals beneath my feet bent violently, twisting out of alignment. The world groaned like a creature in pain. The shadow creature leaned close. Daniel, Daniel, speak the breath again, align the spirals, or everything becomes the unremembered. I tried to inhale, but air refused to fill my lungs. My chest felt crushed beneath the weight of 1,000 memories that were not mine. Images flashed in my mind, faces, forests, titans, worlds that breathed and broke, lifetimes buried under layers of forgetting. The revenant called again. Daniel, do you remember our name? My vision blurred. No, it felt like the truth and a lie. The new being stepped between us, its voice resonant and steady. He remembers choice, not chains. The revenant screamed a sound that splintered the earth. Its form elongated, reaching across the plains. Shadows erupted into towering spires. The sky twisted into spirals of darkness. The first remembered sank deeper into the earth, anchoring itself with roots thick as mountains. The shadow creature hissed. The land cannot hold both memories. He must choose. Now, another fissure opened at my feet. Golden light poured upward, wrapping around my legs. The pull was gentle but firm, as though the world itself was begging for direction. My pulse thundered. If I chose wrong, the world would bend into ruin. If I chose nothing, the unremembered would shape it in my place. I closed my eyes and inhaled. The breath inside me was no longer golden, no longer red, no longer anything I could describe with human meaning. It was simply mine. I exhaled. The breath became sound. The spirals across the plains realigned instantly. The sky titans awoke with a thunderous roar. The earth titans surged upward, sending a quake through the horizon. The rootborn glowed brighter, their forms expanding. The new being turned fully toward the revenant, its eyes blazing with determination. The revenant screamed as the spirals beneath it shifted again, forcing its form to compress inward. Its limbs twisted, folding into spirals that matched the world's new alignment. The shadow creature whispered, "You are choosing. Continue." The breath rose again, unbidden, flowing through me like fire and wind. I raised my voice, letting the breath become intention once more. "Stand down." The command echoed across the plains like a ripple through time. The sky titans stopped descending. The earth titans' roar softened into a deep hum. The spirals tightened, binding the land into a stable formation. But the revenant did not fall. It folded inward, compressing, shrinking, but not breaking. Its form twisted into a single spiraling column of shadow and faint gold. It hovered above the fissure, trembling violently. Its voice cracked. "Daniel, do not abandon us again." My chest seized. The first remembered stepped forward. The unremembered cannot coexist. They must be bound or they will consume. I whispered hoarsely. "Bound how?" The titan lowered its head. "Through you." My pulse froze. The revenant stretched toward me, a thin arm of shadow reaching, not in hunger, in desperation. "We are you, just the parts you turned away from." My knees weakened, my breath faltered. The shadow creature whispered, "Choose, bind it, or release it, but do not hesitate." The rootborn gathered around me, glowing softly. The new being bowed its spiraled head. "Your breath will decide." I stared at the revenant. Its eyes still shifting, still familiar, met mine with a plea older than the world. Daniel, please. The world waited. The spirals pulsed. The titans hummed. The breath rose inside me one final time. I made my choice and spoke. The story ends here. Thank you for watching and listening to the whole story. Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to listen to the next stories.